Welcome back to What's Your Story Live. This is Leilani Langdon. And guys, I am so excited to be here today. Marguerite, I see you, girl. She says, yay, I'm able to watch. I'm actually able to watch, and I'm so happy that you're here. Listen, if you're part of the community, you know what to do. Go ahead and jump in. Let me know you're watching. Say, hey, girl. Let me know that you're here. And if this is your first time, let me know where you're watching from, because, you know, we're in the business of celebrating each other and encouraging and empowering one another. So go ahead and do that. But I'm Leilani Langdon, and this is What's Your Story, a space where we get to journey alongside others so that you can be inspired to know, own, and share your story. Now, listen, I am, like I mentioned, I'm Leilani, your host, and I'm a licensed clinical therapist and a story coach who's passionate about helping you discover your purpose through the exploration of your story. And I'm so happy you're here today. All right, we have a lot of people coming in, so I just want to highlight you. Elisa, hey girl. Oh my gosh, how's your baby? She's probably the cutest little thing ever. Marcy, good to see you, girl. Evie, hola, ¿cómo estás? My Latinas in the house. Hey, Gio. First time in Florida. Marguerite, I'm a little jealous because you are near beaches and palm trees, but we have some warm weather, so I'm taking it. Hey, Pam. Hey, Kaitana. Hey, girl. Ryan and Lauren. Oh, it's so good to see you guys. Listen, if you are part of our community, you know that this is a judgment-free zone. It is a space where we get to encourage and empower one another, and not just through the celebration of the person and encouragement of the person who's sharing their story, but it's an opportunity for us to encourage one another. The reality is that if you've been along this journey with us, you know that in the comments, we have gotten vulnerable. We have gotten real. There have been people who have just opened up as a result of the stories that have been shared. And you guys come through every single time. So I just want to thank you for being that space here. Anyway, guys, listen. How is your Sunday going? My Sunday has been a whirlwind, okay? Everything from mommyhood, so managing 3 babies and laundry, and then more importantly, I have been most of the day actually, in between those tasks, I have been in an actual virtual conference called Monetize Your Message with Leslie Samuel. Now, he was here a couple of weeks ago, and he shared his amazing story of entrepreneurship and how he left his professor job at a university to become a business coach and is successful and is doing well. And it was just such an inspiring story. I know that there's several people from our community who went to the conference as a result of him sharing his story. Now, listen, it was super inspiring and emotionally draining because it took a level of energy to think, to process, to interact with other people. And I'm just so grateful I had the opportunity. Yeah, Marguerite saying, whoop, whoop. Listen, that's his wifey. It was just a phenomenal experience. It was a phenomenal experience. And I'm just so grateful I had the opportunity. And I have 2 more days left of the conference. So I'm excited about that. But guys, as always, we jump into our Did You Know moment. And I want you to get ready for this one because, if you knew it, good. If you don't, listen, I want you to go ahead and let me know in the chat. But did you know that your brain is wired to ignore any information that does not match the stories you tell yourself? Did you know that your brain is wired to ignore any information that does not match the stories you tell yourself? Now, let me give you an example of that. So, let's say you drive a Honda Civic, okay? And you decide that it's time to upgrade your car. So you walk into the dealership and you look through all of the options and you see this beautiful maroon Range Rover. And you're like, that's it. That's my car. It's like you sit in it. The smell is good. It's fresh. You've never seen a maroon Range Rover. However, the moment you jump in that car and you drive it off the lot, guess what? On your way home, you see 5 maroon Range Rovers. Now, what just happened? How come you didn't see them before? Guys, this is what happens with your brain. Your brain is wired to ignore any information that does not match the story you tell yourself. So the question is, what story are you telling yourself? What story are you telling yourself? Now, listen. What you believe about yourself impacts your ability to move forward, to live, to thrive, to live on purpose. Now, this is how it looks in real life, maybe outside of the car example, which we probably all have had at some point. But if you've ever thought of yourself, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. Let's go with I'm a failure. Okay. I'm a failure. What's going to happen is that your brain is going to then go and find all the evidence it can find to support that belief. I am a failure. So you try something for the first time and you're scared, but you do it anyway. And what happens? You make a mistake. And your brain says, instead of your brain saying, you made a mistake, you're learning, you're growing, this is going to help you move forward, your brain says, this is why you should have never tried in the first place. You are a failure. So what happens is that your brain naturally works against you when you have the wrong narrative. So the wrong narrative equals false evidence, and the right narrative equals right evidence. And so it's important that you're telling yourself the right story. So how do you even tell yourself the right story? Well, you start by asking yourself the question, is what I'm telling myself, or is what I'm believing about myself or this situation, is it true? Is it true? Right? And that takes some thought and time because, again, your brain is searching for the evidence that supports what you believe. But if it's not true, then your job is to change that narrative, because here's what happens. When you are telling yourself the wrong story, you're experiencing anxiety, fear, sadness, lack of meaning, hopelessness. You're feeling stuck. You're uncomfortable. But when you have the right narrative and your brain is taking in the right evidence, it brings purpose, peace, growth, hope, and development. And so today I'm challenging you that it's time to change the narrative. It's time to change the narrative. So instead of I am a failure, maybe saying I am always learning. Instead of saying I'm not enough, I am enough. Instead of saying I don't know that thing or I don't know enough. No, I have all the information that I need and I can learn more. So it's time to change the narrative. But in order to change it, you got to challenge it and start repeating the new story. Create a new story, repeat the new story, and share the new story. So without further ado, my friends, we're going to have to go ahead and get your hand claps ready for our special guest this evening who is courageously willing to share her story. And so get your hand claps ready to welcome Rachel Keel. Let me add you to the stream, girl. Hey.
Hello.
Oh my goodness, Rachel, it's so good to see you. How you doing?
I am doing good. It is warm outside finally here in Michigan. I'm hashtag blessed.
Yes, hashtag, that's a good hashtag, blessed tonight. You're getting a lot of welcomes here. Marcy, yep, changing the narrative, life changing. We have to change that narrative. Getting a couple more hand claps. All right, Rachel. So tell me about yourself.
Well, My name is Rachel, and I work at Andrews University in Southwestern Michigan. And I am pretty newly Andrews University Director of University Wellness and Director of the Andreasen Center for Wellness, our wellness facility here on campus. Yeah.
Big things.
So trying to do big things. I am married to, he's like that way. That's why I'm pointing that way. He's in the living room. Married to a wonderful man, Donnie Keel. We have 2 dogs, no kids.
Hey.
That's kind of what it is.
Living it up at Andrews University. Love it.
Amen.
Love it.
Yes.
You got some love from Joyce.
Joyce Murphy.
Hey,
That's
Joyce
my
was
girl.
on the, yes, she was on the show and shared her powerful story. So I'm so excited she's here to support. All right, Rachel. So tell us, what's your story?
Well, my story is in a nutshell, and I will explain it, but I am a stroke survivor, and I am now 5 years out from a stroke. And I will tell you, before I had that experience, I knew this much about strokes. Well, maybe like this much.
Yeah.
Basically, all I associated with strokes was that like old people had them. That's what I thought. And yeah, your face droops and you have slurred speech. Okay. Basically, none of that happened to me.
Yeah, for sure.
I was very shocked when I found out what had happened. So just to provide a little bit of context before I kind of hop into this story.
Yeah.
A lot of people who know me now know me as someone who's like really big into health and fitness and wellness. And that certainly is part of my identity now, but that has not always been the case. So I would say like most of my life, I was, Leilani, we just talked about how like Siri talks to us. Siri just talked to me. Sorry. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Is she continuing to talk to you?
Yes.
So here's what happens,
Okay.
guys. We use headphones to kind of help with the audio. And when you have AirPods, Siri thinks that you're talking to her. So she starts talking to you and then it weirds you out. Yeah.
Okay. We can handle it. All right.
Yeah.
So most of my life, I describe myself like my natural stasis is actually couch potato. Most people think I am very active now, but like I love food and I love sitting around and I love watching movies. And that's really like where my heart is. But we moved to Berrien back in 2011 and I knew like I wasn't really happy with how I felt or how I looked. Leading up to that time, I never, as a teenager, as a 20-something, like I never really felt like I had control of my body or like what it looked like or what it felt like. And so I would go on these kind of like exercise spurts or phases. I would train for a triathlon and then not exercise for like 6 months afterwards, stuff like that. And then in 2013, some of our friends, one of them being Joyce Murphy, opened a CrossFit box in Berrien Springs. And I had never done CrossFit before. And so we signed up in December of 2013. And then it was just kind of like a switch flipped.
Really?
And Joyce and I became workout buddies and she became my best friend. And it just became like we were there 6 days a week and we were spending all this time just at the gym. And in spring of 2015, I got certified as a CrossFit coach.
Hey.
And so then I was there like so many hours per week. Joyce knows this. Other people who are on here probably know this as well. My husband knows this. And Leilani, you and I certainly did workouts together. You know what it is.
I remember.
Leilani was there too. So all that to say, in 2016, the person I was at that point was someone who was very active, and being active was a huge part of my identity. So it was March of 2016, and Joyce and I were there in the morning at the gym getting ready to work out. And there was a rumor that went around that I was injured doing CrossFit. And this was not actually true because we had not started a workout. I really wanted Joyce to get an Instagram picture for me for the gram. Okay. And I had this idea.
For the gram, okay.
Doing it for the gram. Instagram gave me a stroke is really what happened.
Oh, listen.
So I was like, I'm going to put 2 kettlebells down on the floor in front of the wall. I'm going to kick up into a handstand holding the kettlebells. And then I'm going to shift to one hand and like take the pictures. Like Joyce is ready. She's got my phone and everything. It all goes according to plan. Dangerous. I kick up there. Yeah, right. It does. I don't know what would give you that idea. So I like shift to one hand and she does a photo burst and she gets the image, but I'm there for like half a second. And then like, the kettlebell falls over, my arm wiggles, and I fall so that like my face like smashes into the kettlebell, and it hurt pretty bad. And I hop up and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, am I bleeding? Like, and like, oh my gosh, broken. I didn't break my nose. Like, I'm so lucky. So I'm like super happy. Wow. We do our workout. I go home. I come back the next day. We work out again. And after that second workout on the second day, my neck started to hurt and we had done some pressing or whatever. So I was like, oh, I think that maybe I pulled something. I went home, I took some ibuprofen, which is a blood thinner, probably prolonged what happened here. And then I go to work, I'm feeling okay. And then all of a sudden at work, it's been probably 36 hours since I fell maybe. And I just start having this like throbbing pain back here in my neck. And I'm trying to massage it. I'm trying to like get this knot out. And I'm like, oh man, I better go take some more ibuprofen. I get up to go make some copies, go to the copy room. I'm there at the copier. And all of a sudden, like the room starts to spin, like just like everything rotating behind me. And you know how kind of like, if you get up too fast, like maybe after you've been sleeping or something, and then you get a little bit dizzy and maybe it like starts to, to black out, like maybe you're going to faint or something. I had that feeling. So I immediately just like helped myself down to the floor, but it was just like still spinning. Nothing was blacking out. Everything was just spinning. So then I just laid down on the floor and I'm just like watching the ceiling spin. And I'm like, surely this will go away. So I lay there. Probably after about 5 minutes, a coworker comes in and is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. The room is spinning and I'm just waiting for it to stop. And
oh my God,
are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine or whatever. He leaves. The room is still spinning. He comes back a few minutes later and is like, what's going on? And I was like, honestly, I don't feel so good at this point. The room has been spinning for like 10 minutes. So if you're just like on a, something that spins for 10 minutes, you start to get sick. So grabbed a trash can, started throwing up. Oh my God. They called my husband and he came over with a coworker who was a nurse, which was nice. And they're like, oh, you probably have food poisoning or something. At this point, I had thrown up probably 2 or 3 times and the room was still spinning. And I had never gotten sick, like the flu or like food poisoning where the room spun. And so I was just like, I don't know. And also after throwing up a few times, I did not feel any better. And you know how like kind of you throw up and you're like, oh, okay, at least for a little while.
Relief.
No.
Yeah. Wow.
No relief whatsoever. Oof. At this point, I couldn't stand up because just like everything was spinning. So they put me in a chair with wheels on it and they wheeled me out to the car and they brought me over to our apartment here in the men's dorm. And so took me inside. And at this point, I thought I was feeling a little bit better. I wasn't feeling so nauseous anymore. And then all of a sudden, my neck started to hurt again. This has maybe been like 45 minutes since the onset of symptoms. Wow. And right before Donnie, my husband, is about to like start giving me a neck massage or whatever, the whole like left side of my body, just like head to toe, doesn't go numb or it's not paralysis. I just basically had no control. Wow. So I could maybe like lift up my arm. I think I reached over to grab my phone or something and I couldn't like control my arm. Wow. And I was like, Donnie, I can't do stuff. Yeah, something's wrong. Right. So at that point, we were like, it's time to go to the ER. Went to the ER, but even all this, I don't know what a stroke is. Never crossed my mind. Don't know what's going on. I really had no working theory for it. I think I was just feeling really grody. And so I wasn't like, what's going on? I was just like, please help me, somebody. So
make it stop.
We get to the ER and luckily, they know immediately to run a stroke protocol based on what Donnie tells them, that like she was vomiting, she's really nauseous, the room is spinning, and her left side is like she's unable to move her left side or control it. And they knew right away. Now, since then, I've learned a lot of people my age, like who would be considered I was 29 at the time.
Wow.
So a lot of people my age are misdiagnosed from a stroke. Even at the hospital, they don't run what's called like the stroke protocol and do the proper procedures and testing and whatever for that, because they just assume like you're not a likely candidate for it. And sometimes people are sent home, and because of that, the deficits are long-term and very bad. So that was kind of like the first big blessing that we experienced in that, is just that immediately at Lake Lindyar here in St. Joe, they knew what to do. So they started doing scans, MRIs. They came in and they said, we see there's like a blockage in the back of your neck. And even that didn't like send off a red flag for me. I was like, oh yeah, blockage. And they're like, we need to do this like treatment. It was basically a super powerful blood thinner, but like we needed to sign paperwork for it because it can kill you if done improperly, or if you were to fall soon afterwards or something. It's like powerful enough. Yeah. So we were like, oh man, should we do that? We signed the paperwork. We did that. And then they transferred me to the ICU. So once they administer that blood thinner, they send you to the ICU because nothing can happen to you.
Yes.
Now, as a side note, for people who don't know much about strokes, is that basically it's really important to know the onset of symptoms if you can, because you have a 3-hour window. And if when you get to the hospital, you're able to tell them when those symptoms start, and it's within 3 hours, they will administer that type of treatment. They will give you a really powerful blood thinner that will get things moving, get more blood circulating through the brain, possibly break up a clot or something like that. And then your outcomes will be much better. But it is, like I said, it's very dangerous. And so if they don't, after 3 hours, it's really not going to make much of a difference. Wow. So if you don't know when those symptoms are, they won't do it. Wow. So a lot of people, this is another big blessing. I mean, like I said, it had been 36 hours. And a lot of people might have it immediately, but sometimes people have it in the middle of the night. And they might wake up, go back to sleep knowing they don't feel very well. They wake up paralyzed. And so I felt super, super fortunate long-term once I realized what had happened, that I was with people and that we were able to get the treatment and have the details that we needed. So I go to the ICU. They wake you up like every hour, and they're constantly having you do tests to like squeeze things and push things and pull things. And that was the first time that they were like, oh, I think you should be back to normal in maybe like 3 months. And I was like, what? Like 3 months? Which for many stroke survivors is a very short recovery time. But that was kind of my first like realization that this was probably something serious. Wow. And the next day they sent in several specialists to kind of evaluate things. This is part of the stroke protocol. So the first person that came in was actually a speech therapist. Now, the way that strokes work is that they've affected a certain part of your brain, and the whole, like, you only use 10% of your brain. And I just heard this on a show last night too. People still say this. It is not true, you guys. Like, all of your brain is being utilized, 100% of it. Okay. So any aspect, like any area of your brain where there's tissue death, you will experience side effects from that. So your brain is full of synapses. All of the synapses are responsible for the way you think, feel, move, talk, sense, experience, whatever. So basically, a stroke is there's different kinds. Maybe I'll just get to that when they diagnose it. But anyways, it's common that strokes affect speech, but it's certainly not always the case. Okay. So the speech therapist comes in and she's like, I'm here because they ran a stroke protocol. And I was like, come again? Like, a what? And she's like, but you're talking fine. I bet you didn't even have a stroke. I don't know why she told me that. But she does her little tests and she's like, great job. And I'm like, Yeah, I did a great job. I probably didn't have a stroke.
Right.
And then the next person that comes in is an occupational therapist. And they're like, well, we're going to see if you can stand up. And I was like, well, certainly
Of course I
I
can.
can stand up. And I could not. So
Oh no.
that was when I realized I couldn't walk anymore for the time being. So I was like, okay. Then physical therapist came in. A neurologist came in a little bit later, and that's when they started. They still weren't diagnosing it, but we're saying, yeah, we think there's like a really strong, possibility that you had a stroke.
Wow.
But I think was hanging on to what the speech therapist had said.
You're fine.
Mind you, I was very, very tired at this point. I was exhausted. I hadn't had any good sleep. I had a brain injury. So I'm like, oh, it's probably not that thing. That night, they take me to do an MRI, and I'm in recovery at this point. I don't have to be in the ICU anymore. And a couple of residents come in to let me know what the diagnosis is now. And I'm still very tired. And they're like, so it appears that you've experienced, I think what they called it was a cerebellar infarction. And I was like, immature me is like,
yes.
Fart, what? Like, what is that? Yeah. Did you say fart? And then they're like, no, infarction, like a stroke. And I was like a stroke, or I had a stroke? And they said, you had a stroke.
Oh my gosh. So you're like, still like,
yeah, still like not willing to accept this reality for some reason.
Oh my goodness.
So that's what it was. And I was like, okay, I had no idea what questions to ask or whatever. I think they told me the same thing, like, yeah, based on what we've observed, you'll probably be back to normal in a few months. So good for you. And I was like, okay, but
my whole life.
Yeah. Also at that point, I was like, they have no idea what normal is for me. So normal for me is hours of activity every single day and teaching other people how to do things. And I will also say at this point that several of the doctors and nurses had been like, wow, this should have been way worse. Or, wow, you really seem like you're already bouncing back way faster than we expected. And they were all attributing that to fitness. And so I had 2 or 3 people be like, so what do you do to work out? Like, what is it that you're...
Can you coach me once
really healthy. Yeah.
Once you recover?
One of the other things, I had like really low resting heart rate. They had to reset the machine because it kept like alerting them that I was dying or whatever. And so they're like, man, you have a really strong heart. And this is another reason why it probably took so long for the symptoms to set in. So anyway, at that point, I was kind of like, man, if this had happened a couple years earlier, like I don't know what would have happened. And in the ER, like actually when I first got there, I kind of skipped over this part. So the first thing they asked me before I knew anything about it being a stroke or whatever, they said, have you had a chiropractic adjustment? And I was like, no. And then they said, have you been in a car accident maybe recently? And I said, no. And then I was like, well, I fell on my head yesterday. And they're like, oh, yeah, definitely. So I will explain what actually happened at this point. So when I fell on my head, it hyperextended my neck, like pushed my face back very quickly. So, and I try to avoid throwing my neck back now.
Please don't do that. Yeah.
So when that happens, like with an extreme angle, it will pinch the artery shut. Now it's designed to just pop right back open. Right. But basically what happened is that the inner layers stuck together and the outer layers pulled open. It's called a dissection. And it creates a blockage. So there's no blood passing through. So it's not a clot. It's a dissection where an occlusion is a blockage. So that is what happened. So that creates an ischemic stroke in this case, which means that because of a blockage, there's a loss of blood. A hemorrhagic stroke would mean that you've had some kind of rupture somewhere in the brain or in the blood flow leading. Yeah, something burst. And same thing, it's still interrupting the blood flow just in a different way. So this was an ischemic stroke. Typically, you're affected, like the affected side of your brain, it will be like the opposite effects on your body, like the opposite side of the body. But this was below the brainstem. So the dissection was in my vertebral artery. So loss of blood to my left side cerebellum. So my left side of the body was affected. And your cerebellum is responsible for like a lot of your motor movements, like your body. So my speech was not affected. I didn't get confused or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
A lot of that would be a different part of the brain. So all of it was like movement balance, some vision stuff like that. Okay, so we get the diagnosis the next day. I'm supposed to leave the next day. So like within 2 days, they're like, okay, you can go.
Go where? Wait, go
home. So,
but you can't walk.
Everything we can. Right. So
oh my gosh.
I could walk like a little at this point.
Okay.
I wasn't actually going to mention this, but when I got home, I did a couple things. Like they had told me not to be active, not to move around a lot because your brain cannot handle the motion, like being jostled at that point.
Yeah.
And I ended up going on a car ride to get my hair done because I was like, if I'm feeling nasty, girl, I gotta look good. And I had a hair appointment. I was like, I cannot reschedule this. So I had a friend, I don't know if she's on here, Renee, my friend Renee Paddock, drive me. And neither of us knew, like, she drives me down to the hair salon in Granger, which is like 40 minutes away.
Oh my gosh, Rachel.
I get there, go straight to the bathroom, vomit a bunch, and then come get my hair done. Like, they're like, how are you? I'm like, oh, I had a stroke on Tuesday. We ride back home. I get home, I vomit my brains out, and then I can't walk. So I actually I was like not walking well. It was I needed help. I had to be held or whatever. But after that, I basically like could not walk on my own at all. So, some of the walking was a big one. Balance was like out the door. I had continued vertigo. So that basically continued for about 6 months and just got progressively less and less until it stopped.
Oh my God.
But initially it was still just like constant spinning. So I was very nauseous for maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 6 days. And then eventually I think my body and my brain were just like, oh, this normal. Everything moves now always. So it's okay. Those were some of the initial things. I had a plane of double vision, like in my left eye that just like, over time shrunk. So if I am trying to pluck my left eyebrow or like do something like that, that is difficult because I still have a little plane of double vision, but like nothing that I would notice now, like just looking around. But then it was quite a bit more. Yeah. I had no like temperature sensation for a long time, which was actually awesome because I was just like the right temperature for like 2 months. I just like never was hot, never was cold. And I was hoping that would never go away. And it did, but that was pretty cool. And had no, like, I didn't know this for a long time, but like so in general, I could still like feel if things were hot or cold. It was just like my internal temperature was set to a certain something. But I actually couldn't feel temperature on my left leg. That was like a random thing. The first time I tried to get into the hot tub, it just felt like I could feel water. I could feel all that stuff, but it felt just like my body temperature or whatever. That went away eventually. A bunch of little things like that. So for the first couple of weeks, I was just like completely exhausted, couldn't walk. Donnie had to help me do everything. He was still working full time, was feeding me meals and getting me to the shower and all of this stuff. If I like stayed awake for maybe a couple hours and talked to some people, I would have to take a nap because it was like if I like going out to the living room to watch TV was like a huge thing. If I held my head up for a couple of hours, I would be exhausted. And I was like, this must be how babies feel. Like, because they're always like, they have to like figure out how to hold their head. I was like, my head is so heavy. So that lasted probably. And then walking around the way I was like, I am a giant adult baby. Like, this is how babies feel. So eventually my energy came back up. I still had to be super careful. But it did get better. After a couple weeks, I could get around by myself. I did like what's called the drunken sailor walk, which is like super wide feet. And I just like holding on to the walls like a drunk person all the time. And Donnie would be like super nervous. Like he did not want me to walking anywhere. And I'm like, dude, I gotta pee and you're not always here. I don't know what to figure it out. Like,
here I go.
I gotta figure it out. So it got easier. After a couple weeks, the headache started, which is a really common symptom like post-stroke. And they want you just to like rest and not do anything. And then all of a sudden you get these like drastic headaches, which would just feel I don't know if they're the same for everyone. They're probably not, but it would be like, and I still get them sometimes. This is just how I get headaches now. If I get one, but it would just feel like basically someone like hit you over the head with a bat.
Ooh.
So it would maybe not last for very long. Like it would just be like a huge like
Ooh.
pain, and you would be like, and then it would be gone. But initially, like maybe 2 weeks after I got home, it was all the time. They had put me on like really strong painkillers. That lasted for probably about a month. Just like headaches, like so I would just be like crying. I'm not someone who's had migraines before or anything like that. It was not something I was used to. So I'd just be like, I just want to sleep. I'm in so much pain, that kind of thing. But eventually those went away, which is nice. And now if I get them, it's just like a couple second thing. So if you're ever talking to me and I'm like, it's because I have a headache, and then it will go away.
Good to
but
know.
yeah, after, I mean, I couldn't work for probably about a month. And then I was working from home for a while after that. Looking at a computer screen was definitely hard. But I was also finishing my master's degree. So that was supposed to be my last semester of classes. And that was March, like I said. So like April would be the last month of classes. I'm trying to remember the class we were taking, but I think it was, I did educational psychology. A lot of my classes were about the brain. So my instructor was super understanding and really nice. And I was able to finish the class and do all the requirements and take my comps in June and finish my degree, which was huge for me. I was like, I am not waiting around for this. Like, I'm not putting it off. It needs to happen.
Wow.
So yeah, a huge blessing. Those like few months following, like maybe after about 2 months, I started going back to the gym. And at first, like Joyce will remember, I would just like hang out and like watch stuff. Like my thing for the day would be to go. And then I'd be like, good job, guys. And then after a while, it was like, okay, I'll like use these super light weights, or I'll just do everything unweighted. If there was a run, I'm doing my little like drunken speed walk or whatever. And that was really important for me. That's another thing. If this had happened earlier in my life, I just don't think I would have the same motivation to get back to where I'd been. And a lot of people would be like, oh, do you think you'll be able to do that stuff again? And I'd be like, yeah, that's not an option. Like I need to get back to where I was before. So that was one of the bigger challenges, is over like maybe the next 6 months to a year, was trying to find the line of what was okay, what wasn't okay, what was pushing myself too hard. And also like, that was really hard for Donnie too. Like this whole experience was very, in some ways, I think harder for him. Like facing my mortality, and then also me being like, I'm going to go back to the gym, like, which is where it happened. And him being like, fear. What are you doing? Like we would get into a lot of like little arguments and things like that, just like being frustrated with each other.
Well, feeling
over, like,
helpless, right?
I need to do. Like trying to find that balance. And I know, my friends will tell you there were many times I was just like, when you're in a gym environment, especially like a competitive one like CrossFit, there's that feeling of like everyone is continuing, everyone is progressing, everyone is getting PRs, and you're like backwards, like you're moving in reverse or whatever, which was hard. It's a little thing, but it definitely gave me a lot of motivation to work hard. And also during that time, one of the other huge blessings was we had tried to arrange physical therapy through the hospital, and they were like, yeah, we can schedule you for like 2 months from now or something like that. And everyone was saying like, oh, like it should happen as soon as possible.
Right.
And so we talked to somebody here on campus because we have a physical therapy department, and I was able to do all my physical therapy here at no cost.
Wow.
Didn't have to pay anything. Yeah.
Amazing.
It was so much better. So that was a huge thing, that and the combination of just kind of like working out at my own pace and doing a lot of different things, like doing CrossFit, doing Zumba, which I can remember there was like a song where we would like clap, and every time I would like miss for a long time, and I was like,
not funny,
this is really good for me. I need to keep doing this. Things like that. So recovery felt very slow. I think compared to a lot of other people's journeys, which I've connected with so many people since then through social media, that have, like, everyone's experience is super unique, super different, but there are so many people my age, similar circumstances, that were not able to have the same resources or were not able to get the diagnosis in time, things like that. And so I feel super fortunate and blessed, and I just feel the responsibility to kind of share the experience to help other people understand about strokes. Another like resource that I found pretty soon afterwards, it's called NOPW, which stands for National Orange Popsicle Week. And it was created by a stroke survivor and her husband, just to kind of like get the message out and be a support to young stroke survivors and raise funds and things like that. And connected with them and kind of like made the orange popsicle my own personal mantra as well. I actually have a little tattoo of it. Cool. And my website is orangepopsiclefitness.com. So yeah, there were so many connections, so many resources. And I feel like, man, if I could go back and kind of like do it all again, I would. Like, I think it's been such an important part of making me who I am and creating change in me for the better and making me a stronger version of myself. Donnie calls me Rachel 2.0 because now I feel way braver and way more capable and way more confident. But yeah, I think there were, well, a lot of times people, as a little side note, a lot of times people ask me what some of my deficits still are. Very small things to that, like I don't notice normally on a daily basis. But before we started tonight, I was telling Leilani, like, what's this one? My eye is like so droopy today. Like this one just like will never open quite as much. Like if I'm smiling in pictures, I have to squint the other one to make them even. Not a big deal. I still have a little bit of the double vision. This eye tends to get pretty dry, but also much easier to put a contact in for some reason. So that's a nice little side note. Anything that's like a balance challenge that I've never done before, I feel like is extra difficult for me. Still very capable. If I can practice, I can do it, but I'll get like really uneasy. Like if I like am climbing down an embankment or something like that, I feel like I'm not very sure-footed. So I try to be careful with that. If I lie flat at 180 degrees, I often will still get vertigo. Like the room will start to spin and I'll feel like an overwhelming, just sense of vertigo. Yeah. So that kind of still happens, but not regularly. Still have a little bit of tingling in my fingers, nerve sensitivity in my feet, that kind of thing. But it's like little things.
Sure.
So normally don't notice it at all. Yeah. And then I would say like, I do feel like I've learned a lot and like I've experienced a lot of blessings with this. Like I said, I would do it again. But yeah, just to kind of like summarize some of the things that I think were such a blessing to me. First of all, it affected my left side, which made life so much easier because I'm right-handed. Also, like I said, it happened during the day and not in the middle of the night. So we knew exactly when the symptoms started. That was huge. And like I said, the fact that this happened at a point in life when like health and fitness was a big part of my life. I was more prepared for something like this and to recover from something like this. I was healthier, stronger. And this actually is the type of stroke that can and does happen to anyone, including kids, young people. So they had told me at the hospital that they'd seen people who, while backing up the car, turned their head very quickly and it had that kind of stroke. People that had been hit in the face with objects, like maybe at a sporting event, like a hockey puck or something like that, or people that had been on roller coasters or head banging. So anything that might cause whiplash can cause that type of dissection with the artery.
The blockage.
So I always tell people to be really careful. I mean, it's something that could have happened to me at any point and could happen to anyone. But the fact that it happened at this point in my life and not at a different point in my life, I think is really awesome. This experience has given me a lot of opportunities like this right now, but I've been able to speak for other things and just share that experience. And I hope that like the information that I share with other people if it like clues them in to, notice that someone else is having a stroke or notice that they might be having a stroke. And it's not always a stroke. The symptoms for a stroke are pretty common across the board with brain injuries. They often get misdiagnosed as concussions, especially for young people. So the think fast is like the way to remember the stroke symptoms. So F is face drooping, A is arm weakness, is kind of which is kind of like what I described, the lack of control.
Yes.
And S is slurred speech, and then T would be, sometimes they describe it as time to call 911 or note the time of the symptoms, that type of thing. Wow. So those are really common symptoms, but like I said, I didn't have all of those. So confusion, vertigo, nausea, leg weakness, or like same thing, or one-sided. The headaches can also be a symptom. So there are a lot of different symptoms that are related to brain injuries or some type of neck injury that could mean a stroke or could mean something else that's also serious. So it's really important to get to the hospital if you see that in someone. But yeah, this experience gave my life a lot of direction. It really solidified that I think that God saved my life and he like orchestrated it in a way that like I was able to experience so many blessings, but health and fitness was a part of that. Like my fitness helped save my life as well. And I tell people a lot that like you often feel like it's important to make your health a priority now because, it will prevent something down the road. But there's a lot of things that might happen that you could never prevent. So like being in a car accident or like falling, injuring yourself in some way, or maybe you get cancer or whatever. And if your body is healthy, like if you've done what you can to prepare yourself now, then your chances of recovery or the way that you will recover can be so much faster. So it's important right now, even if you are 16 years old. I talk to college students all the time. They feel invincible. They feel like they don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But I'm like, hey, this can happen to anyone. Okay. So you need to be healthy right now. But yeah, this kind of like set the course for my life. I was in residence life at the time here at Andrews, and I've just kind of like shifted more and more towards health and fitness. And now today, I'm the director of university wellness here at the university. So I do think it had like the experience really set the course for my life and kind of solidified what I'm doing. And I'm seeing some of the comments here. Hi, Jenny and Joyce.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the biggest thing that's kind of blown me away is just the way that God is able to use something that I believe, like Satan intends certain things to destroy you and to harm you and to hurt you. And I think the greatest miracle, the most amazing thing about the God that I believe in is that he's able to take those things meant for destruction and use them for your benefit. Same thing. Whatever that thing is, just takes it and is like, actually, I'm just going to, here it is. And it will actually really help you out. I'm not big on like the punishment mindset where God is like punishing us and selecting all of these difficulties, because we live in an awful world and our actions affect everyone around us, and we have the ability to make our choices and we face consequences for those. But in spite of all that, God is still able to just take awful, horrible things and just be like, here, I'll just like use this to make you a better version of yourself.
But you know what, Rachel? It's not just a better version of yourself. It's that. And then it's the fact that
I can't actually hear you.
Oh, you can't? Can you hear me now?
You can hear me.
Yeah, I can.
Oh no.
This is what happens when we're live, folks. Hold on one second. See, listen, the enemy is trying to keep us from finishing preaching. Rachel's like, you better preach. Can you hear me or no? Take off your headphones here. Let's do this. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello.
Hold on.
Listen, this is what happens. But as she is putting on her headphones, here's what's the reality, guys, is that God not only turned it around for good, But then what he did was that he allowed it through her story to then impact people around her. I mean, as a result, Jenny said it beautifully. Where is it? Jenny says, "You are amazing, Rachel. Proud of you for a host of reasons. God was preparing your path for your past, current, and future ministry." Guys, listen, God is able. Yes, he is, Sophie, to take those things for your destruction and use it for good. God is faithful. Rachel, can you hear us or no?
I can. I hope you're not getting a lot of feedback from me now.
Girl, listen. I believe in the name of Jesus. Okay, we're claiming Jesus over the stream. That's what happens when we're going live. But what I was saying was that it's so powerful because not only were you changed and you transformed, and God was faithful in turning this seemingly situation that could have kept you stuck forever, right? He transformed you, and now as a result, you're transforming other people, right? I mean, listen, I'm going to jump into this now, and then I want to ask you this question. But Adrian said this. We just talked about it at the beginning of the show, right? That the wrong narrative can keep you stuck feeling hopeless, but the right narrative can bring freedom, peace, development, growth. Girl, listen. Adrian said this. Oh man, where is it? He says, the power of controlling your narrative. And guys, if you have a question, drop it in the chat and we'll have her answer it. But he said this is controlling your narrative in your story. And one of the things that is so inspiring to me as I'm hearing your story is the fact that you share something that is so difficult for anyone to experience, and you share it with peace, you share it with ingratitude, you share it with this almost just lighthearted feeling, right? And that has to do with more with what you're telling yourself than anything else. So, I guess the question I have for you is how did you come to a place to live out this experience in such a positive way, right? Yeah.
Well, another thing that I think speaks to this is that throughout the experience, I cannot remember a time where I was ever afraid. And I don't say that as something that really speaks to the type of person I am necessarily. I think that's really just God living in me. I think it was really scary for other people in my life, but as I was living it, there was never a time where I felt fearful. And a lot of times the verse that would come to mind for me, I don't remember where this is found right now, but I'm pretty sure it's Paul that says, "Count it all joy when you face trials of many kinds." Hey. And that was huge for me because throughout the experience, and I got so much support from people, so much love from all over the place, people I didn't even feel like I knew very well. I had so much joy through that process, and it was not joy in spite of what was happening. It was not joy after what happened. It was joy in the midst of what was happening. And I was like, that is how you count it all joy. Woo! Okay. Rachel. Paul's not being oh, it's all going to be fun and exciting and whatever. He's it doesn't matter what's going on. By the grace of God, you can still experience joy through your hardship. And I had that 100%. Woo! And it made me want to talk about it. It made me want to share it.
Yes, making me
what I was experiencing. So, yeah.
Oh my! You know what's beautiful about that is that literally, as I was talking, people are like, yes, they just see joy, truly the joy of the Lord. And then you said that, and I was like, look at Jesus. And then Adrian had to be like, well, we know you weren't afraid since you were scheduling spa days in the middle of a stroke.
It was a haircut. Okay. This has to get lined up pretty often.
Oh my gosh. Hashtag joy in the midst. Rachel. Oh my gosh. My goodness. Listen, so what have you been inspired to do as a result of this? You shared a little bit, but tell us, after the stroke, it's, you've continued, and I'm going to show, you just posted a reel. So you know what? I'm actually going to share that with you guys. And then I want you to answer this question for me. Let me make sure that this works. All right. Yeah. Look at me trying to figure it out. 1 second. All right. Chrome tab. Here we
This
go.
was my first reel, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. I'm late.
Perfect.
I'm so late.
Okay, so I'm going to add this to the stream and let's see what happens here. So that's Rachel. That's Rachel's Instagram. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Here we go, guys. Check. Let me take this out though. Let me take.
It's good to see my feet. I think that's where you can best see.
Yeah, let me. All right, here we go.
This was probably about 2 weeks.
Okay, let's see here. Hey.
And that was probably like 2 weeks ago.
Hey. Look at
the fitness class.
Oh my gosh, look at Jesus. Guys, listen, I need you to throw up some celebratory emojis just because it's just so amazing to see like you said, right? Someone who was in the midst of real pain and struggle and experiencing joy. Gabrielle says Rachel's one of the strongest and most amazing person I know. She's always giving of herself in any situation. Amazing. Wow. Yes. Listen, that's amazing. You're getting a whole bunch. But tell us, as we have people just celebrating you right now, tell us, what did it inspire you to do?
Yeah. So I at that point, I think I was very focused on like CrossFit fitness or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I started to realize that like just like a bigger picture to wellness and health and fitness overall. And so around that time, I kind of just like developed the goal of like every year I'm going to get a new certification or just learn something different in health and fitness. Like I'm not going to go back to school at this point. Like I just finished my master's degree, but I was like, and then when opportunities come around, like I'll be ready for that.
Yeah.
So, I had done the CrossFit certification. I did like a mobility certification. I did like a personal trainer after that. So I started doing like a personal training business. We built a gym in our garage. Really, Donnie built it for me, which is really nice. And I was training a lot of people for a while. I actually kind of wore myself out doing that. And then realized like, I felt like I needed way more information about nutrition. So I did a nutrition certification and just kind of tried to like grow that knowledge base and was able to get more opportunities over time. So when I transferred over to Lamson really soon after the stroke, because I actually took your place at Lamson, we were talking about. I started managing the health club there, which gave me some really great experience. And I was personal training doing personal training. I became a group fitness instructor. So when our wellness center opened, I started teaching there right away. Wow. And then less than a year later, after it had opened and the pandemic started, so last year, their manager was leaving. They were furloughing people on campus and moving people around. And they're like, well, you've been helping out there. Do you think you could just like step in and try to keep, the center wasn't open at this time. So it wasn't like a huge stretch or whatever.
Sure.
Can you take care of some of the stuff that's going on? And I was like, yeah, sure. And that turned into an interim position, and that turned into a permanent position, and that turned into university wellness. And it's clearly just like a road I know God is taking me down, and everything kind of just like points in that direction and gives me new experiences. And another thing that this has done for me is just, I know there's a lot of people who feel like I could never get healthy. I could never be fit. That's not the type of person I am. Or they've faced whatever complications or roadblocks to their health and fitness. I've been there. Okay. So I can relate to that. Like I hear what you're saying. It's valid, but like, let's go down this road. So
Rachel, oh my goodness. I am just so thankful to you for sharing your story and being willing to do that so courageously and being so vulnerable and really showing us what an example of joy in adversity looks like. And so thank you so much, guys. Go ahead and check out her Donnie, her husband, coming through. Rachel 2.0 in full effect tonight. Confidence springing out of adversity. God is incredible at turning setbacks into comebacks. Okay, Donnie, I see you out here.
Can I just say another thing that's like this deepened my husband and I's relationship so much.
I can
And
imagine.
Donnie, shout out to Donnie Keel.
Whoop, whoop.
He was so amazing, like taking care of me in every possible way, in ways he never thought he would have to. And he is the realist. He is
yes.
in my phone, he's GOAT, greatest husband of all time.
Of course.
But also I obviously talk to college age girls a lot, but I'm always like, hey, whoever you're with, if you can't see them taking care of you, as in like dressing and undressing you and helping you on the toilet.
Yes.
Or if you can't see yourself doing that for them, you have no business being married.
Listen, that's good relationship advice right there.
Can happen. Yeah.
Ladies, take some notes, okay?
Take notes. So yeah, I'm sorry I already took the greatest husband on the planet, whatever, but there's other great guys.
Yeah. I know. No, man, thank you so much for sharing your story. It is amazing what God can do and how he can turn these things that happen in our lives into great things. The Keel duo are both amazing individually. Absolutely. Rachel, hey guys, check out her orangepopsiclefitness.com, right? And you can check her out on Instagram at Rachel Keel to connect with her individually. And thank you again, Rachel, for sharing your story. I'm gonna send you backstage, girl, and I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye. Guys, woo! Listen, I'm just so grateful to her for sharing her story and for really being an example of what it is, not just for so many things, but not just controlling your narrative and being joy in the midst, experiencing joy in the midst of adversity, and what it means to be transformed, and now using her story to find purpose and a clear path and direction that is encouraging others, but just overall for being an amazing human being. So thank you again, Rachel. Guys, listen, I want to remind you that next week is the end of season 1 of What's Your Story. It is our season finale, and you do not want to miss it because we have giveaways, we have some surprises, and more importantly, we have people coming back. So if you have been wondering, I wonder what happened to DJ and Cherie, I wonder what this person has been up to, I wonder what ended up happening with this. Listen, we're gonna have our past guests come back and share what they have been up to, so you do not want to miss it. Now, I want to also let you know that there are some ways that you can support this platform. First and foremost, you can share this live. You can share it via Facebook. You can go on YouTube and subscribe. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers, and we're going to do a giveaway at that point, but go ahead and subscribe and support this platform. That way, share it with your friends and family. You can also donate, Cash App What's Your Story Live, so that this platform can continue to grow, and we can continue to have stories that are inspiring you to know, own, and share your story. And as always, guys, yes, Jack, she said reunion. Yep, we are coming back and reuniting our past guests. And as always, guys, listen, I just want to remind you, and I want you to remember that your purpose is found in your story. And so the question for you today is that I always leave you with is, are you ready to share your story? See you next week.